Welcome to the Trippi Coaching Podcast. I am Andrea Trippi, your weight loss and confidence coach, along with Tommy Else, personal trainer. Today, we have the immense pleasure of introducing someone very special to me. She's not only a dear friend, but one of the most inspiring individuals I've had the honor of working with on her weight loss journey. Her story is a powerful testament to the connection between trauma and weight loss, and I am so grateful Lucy is here to share it with us today. Lucy's a woman of God whose soft yet deeply convicted soul has touched not only my heart, but the hearts of many. Despite facing incredible challenges from childhood trauma, she is healing from deep-seated emotional wounds. She has lost weight, all through the power of her faith, positive self-talk, and a relentless commitment to self-growth. Her story of overcoming trauma and achieving weight loss is a beacon of hope and resilience, and I know it will resonate with so many of you. But before we begin, I want to offer a gentle reminder that this episode may cover sensitive topics related to trauma and abuse, which might be triggering to some listeners. So if you find yourself feeling overwhelmed or triggered at any point, please take care of yourself and consider seeking support from a mental health professional.
The Trippi Coaching Podcast is sponsored by Hairborn Salon. Always looking for ways to make life easier for their clients, Hairborn is excited to launch their new online booking platform for appointment scheduling. Visit hairbornsalon.com to set up your account and schedule your next service, and be sure and tell them that the Trippi Coaching Podcast sent you to receive 10% off. Online booking is not required. You can also call 630-785-6862, or you can email them at info@hairbornsalon.com.
Now, let's go over some key insights that highlight the significant link between childhood trauma and adult obesity, as well as how these experiences can shape our relationship with food and our bodies. Abuse during childhood leads to a marked increase in the risk of developing obesity as an adult. A 2013 analysis of 57,000 women found that those who experienced physical or sexual abuse as children were twice as likely to be addicted to food than those who did not. Interestingly, childhood trauma can actually have biological effects that contribute to obesity. The deficit of positive emotional feedback more than doubles the likelihood that abused children will become clinically depressed adults, and also increases their risk of addiction. With their brains being unable to produce a natural high, many adult victims of child abuse chase comfort and happiness in the form of food. Adults who have undergone some type of trauma as children may struggle with the effects of residual stress from the event as well. Excess stress can lead to the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines, which prevent insulin from being taken up in the muscle and can lead to weight gain. Childhood trauma encompasses a broad spectrum of adverse experiences that occur during or formative years of a person's life. These experiences can range from physical, emotion, or sexual abuse to neglect, household dysfunctions, attachment issues, or exposure to violence. What distinguishes childhood trauma is not merely the nature of the event itself, but the profound and lasting impact it has on a child's developing brain, emotions, and sense of self. And finally, individuals who experience multiple adverse child experiences are at significantly higher risk for a wide range of negative outcomes, including mental health disorders, substance abuse, chronic health conditions, and even premature mortality. We appreciate all of you being here today, and let's get on with our talk with Lucy. Lucy, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so happy to have you.
Lucy, it's nice to meet you.
It's wonderful to meet you, Tommy. I've heard so much about you, and it's great to see you in person.
Well, thanks for coming out. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Lucy and I have been friends for very, very, very long. What would you say? 2009? 2011-ish.
Around there, yeah.
To many, many years.
It's enough years where we don't have to count them anymore.
And what's cool about Lucy and I is when we, we're such good friends, but when we don't talk and then we pick it back up, it's just like, it's like nothing. It's like we just, yeah.
It's like we just hung up the phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So Lucy, I know that you you have experienced trauma of all sorts of variations, unfortunately, and that can be a big cause for people who have a hard time managing their diet, their exercise, and I know that it's played a factor in your life.
First off, it is my arch enemy called self-sabotage. Mm-hmm. I will do really well. I've lost 40 pounds so far with the help of Andrea Trippi coaching. And as I get closer to that number on the scale, I start to panic. Mm-hmm. And I start my self-sabotaging. It's like I can't free myself to be who I could be, mm-hmm. weight-wise. It's self-protection. It's control. Mm-hmm. My abuse early on in life, I didn't have the control. So I control my way eating, smoking. I don't really drink that much. Mm-hmm. Not anymore.
But that's also a very common outcome for people who suffer from abuse, especially as children.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You find ways to numb yourself.
Yeah.
I did it with drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, even sex.
Sure, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, any distraction,
mm-hmm.
from dealing with the reality and the pain of it,
mm-hmm.
those are all the main go-tos.
When did you first become aware that weight was an issue with you? Was it when you were young?
Oh, when I was young.
Tell us
I
a
think
little bit
it
about
was more of an issue for my parents than it was for me.
Uh-huh.
I think I was about 10 years old when my mom enrolled me in Weight Watchers.
Okay.
My mother had a problem with her weight.
Mm-hmm.
So that just kind of transferred.
Now, in your estimation, do you think that you were even close to having a weight problem, or did you think that you were big for your age? Like you personally, not what your parents are telling you.
Right. I think that I was okay.
Yeah. It seems a little young to be pushing somebody into Weight Watchers.
Yes.
And it sounds like that's someone projecting their own insecurities onto you.
Mm-hmm.
But then of course you then question yourself, you might even just straight up believe, because when your parents tell you something, you just tend to take it as gospel when you're a kid. So if they tell you you're overweight, then you must be overweight.
Right. I remember, I was probably about 5'4", 5'5", mm-hmm. at that time, and I weighed 130 pounds.
Okay.
And they considered that overweight. Mm-hmm. And I remember my father telling me, if you just maintain that weight and don't gain anymore as you get older, you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, mm-hmm. Where's the cookies?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the bread?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but do they tell you how to do that, though?
Well, again, Weight Watchers. I was a frequent flyer at Weight Watchers.
Yeah. And what was it like being that age and going to Weight Watchers meetings? Like, how were you received by the other people? Did anyone there think, like, why is this kid here at all?
I don't know if people thought that. Weight Watchers is a great organization, mm-hmm. but they're also there to make money.
Right.
Yeah.
So if my mom's bringing me in there and paying for me,
yeah,
they're fine. Put you on the scale and say, okay, you
lost
weight.
I'm sure Weight Watchers is fine with it. I mean, like the other people in the class and stuff like that.
I was the youngest person.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I didn't interact with them.
Okay.
And I don't recall my mother interacting with them.
Okay. Did she stick around or did she just drop you off?
Oh, no. She was a member of it as well.
Okay. So you were in classes together then? Yeah.
We were.
Yeah.
We were.
I don't know if class is the right word or not for it, but...
Meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
there you go.
Yeah.
Were you successful with Weight Watchers back then, or was it something that it just kind of...
Sure. I lost weight,
mm-hmm.
and then I would stop following the program.
Mm-hmm.
It's just with anything. You stop following the program, and it's all going to come back. If you go back to your past ways, same thing with how you've been coaching me. Mm-hmm. I know I'm supposed to eat for my blood sugar. I know I'm supposed to eat for energy for my body. Doesn't always happen.
Doesn't always happen, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. The good thing is that you realize, I think now, when you start to that self-sabotage, I think you're starting to realize that it's happening.
I'm connecting the dots, and my next session with my therapist, we will discuss this.
The awareness is a big thing. The awareness is very big. It's the first step in that. How did your self-esteem feel going to these meetings?
It was just in the dumps.
Yeah.
And I was embarrassed. You know, a kid, there's no other kid there.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't think I was that bad.
You're getting labeled at a very young age. And now that's something that can stick with you forever, you know.
That's absolutely true.
Lucy, can you describe your childhood experiences? Are you willing to share some of the
Sure.
traumas that you have endured?
Sure. I think I've told you this before. I had the trifecta. You know, it was sexual abuse, it was physical abuse, and it was emotional abuse. Part of it could have been the time that I was raised in. Things were different. Not the sexual abuse, you know, not the beatings either. Probably more the emotional.
You tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. Never being good enough. Never being right. For the longest time as a child, I thought I was just a ghost because I would say things, I would ask questions, and I was completely ignored. And to this day, that is one of my pet peeves. You know, if I say something and it's not responded to, I'm like, hello, do you hear me?
You get triggered by that?
I do, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
That's interesting.
I can personally relate to every single one of the things that you just said.
Okay.
Some
I'm sorry.
from my own past and childhood experience. Totally with you on every one of those things. I know what that feels like.
I'm sorry you're in the club.
It's really nothing to laugh at, but
Well, humor gets you through so much.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Well, and it's good. Honestly, it's good when you do connect with people who understand. You know that they understand, because when I hear the words that you're using, I know you understand. You know, so
Yeah, he's letting me know I'm not in the boat by myself.
yeah.
And
And it's nice when you find someone who
sure.
you make that connection with. So you know.
Sure. Tell us a little bit more. How did these...
Let me ask you this.
Yeah, please do.
As you got older, at what points take us through the timeline a little bit of, you have the abuse, you have some things that your parents did that, gave you a false sense of who you really were. And over time, you start realizing what happened and the effect that it's having on you, and that you are a result of trauma and abuse. At what point did you have that moment where you realized that it's not supposed to be like this? I'm not wrong. I'm not faulty, and I'm suffering from what has been put on me.
it's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
I came to the realization later in life. I was probably in my 40s
Yeah.
when I started facing it head on. And that was a trip and a half.
Yeah.
I was in many unhealthy relationships. The longest term one was 10 years, and I was with an alcoholic.
Sure.
And it felt right to me because both my parents are alcoholics. So it felt right, it felt familiar, it felt safe.
Right. There's a certain comfort in that because you know that, and you know how to navigate that because you've been around it before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, it's what I knew. And I don't know about everybody else, but I like staying in the box.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Again, it's control.
Yep.
It's being able to maintain control.
Yeah. And that relationship, not only was I with an alcoholic, but that person was also emotionally absent. And it wasn't enough. And I wanted more out of life. And I was in therapy during the time.
Yeah.
And that helped me with my confidence to be able to leave that relationship.
Good.
And, you know, I'm in a healthy relationship now, 20 plus years.
Nice.
You know,
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm blanking here because I'm hearing your story for the first time.
You really
and,
are.
Yeah, and it's, you know, we've talked about little things here and there in our coaching, but we haven't really dived deep. So I am really appreciative and humbled that you're bringing this forth, and I'm sure it's. I hope it's cathartic for you too, that you're be able to.
Absolutely. You know, honestly, my partner, one of my brothers, and one of my cousins are aware of what I went through.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I've never spoken about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah, it's definitely cathartic. It helps. You know, the sexual abuse started when I was very, very young. And the physical abuse was always there. And one of the things that I read when I was researching this was that due to childhood trauma, you were being groomed for future predators.
Sure.
And I read that line several times. And I was like, a light bulb went off. Like, okay, that explains so much. You know, because I went from being abused at home to a lot of my abuse was sexual in later in life. Bosses. I went to my mother's work one day, I don't know, help her out with something, and the maintenance guy there, you know, just kind of like pushed me up against the wall and started kissing me. I was 15 maybe.
Jeez.
You know, but I attracted them and they were attracted to me.
Right, and there's a weird thing in that it's like you feel a certain sense of acceptance by that because it's like, you know, like, well, I mean, they're attracted to me, you know.
Attention.
So, yeah.
And that's what love equaled. Love was sex.
Right.
You know, love was the attention. Walking home from school, 14 years old, and there was a guy who would sit out on his front stoop and we would talk. He was probably in his 30s, mid-30s. And one day he invited me inside and he raped me.
Oh, jeez.
And it was like, I didn't know it was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I didn't know. You know, I had said no, but that didn't matter. And it didn't matter in my home life.
Well, and when you're that age, 30 seems like, I mean, you know, they're an adult, you know, and you listen to adults, you do what adults say, you don't want to ruffle feathers or anything like that, and you know, I get it, you know, your perception of, you know, an adult person is different, you know.
Sure. They're the authority.
Right, exactly. And you wouldn't go up against them or want to cause trouble.
No,
you know?
no. And that was also being raised that if a woman was raped, she was asking for it.
Wow. Yeah.
She basically deserved it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I didn't tell anybody. You know, I never said a word. You know, it was just another one of those secrets that just got pushed in the back.
Right.
Well, that's a big one.
That's a huge one. If at any time you need a break during any of this, please.
I promise I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I feel like you're the one who needs the break.
I think I do. Yeah. So how have your childhood traumas related to the struggles with your weight as an adult?
Again, it goes back to control. It was the only thing that I could control in my life was my weight. And like you said earlier, it was comfort. You know, comfort foods, sugars, everything. It wasn't healthy for me.
No. But did you feel that if you had weight on you, that it would
It was my
protect you?
protection. Absolutely.
Okay. It would make you less desirable? Is that how it... Okay.
Yeah, in my mind.
There's logic behind it.
Oh, yeah,
it
absolutely.
makes sense. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Daughter of an engineer, I do have some logic. But it stays with you.
Talk about that.
It stays with you. I've had lots of therapy, and then I take a break from therapy. And when things start to go in a direction I don't want them to go in any longer, I get back into therapy. It still lingers. There's still vibrations of it. But I can come to terms with it some.
Does any of this affect your sleep?
Not any longer.
Yeah.
I used to, and Andrea can contest or agree with me on this. I used to take so many medications to sleep.
Yeah.
And we would talk at night.
Did you just have kind of like a racing thoughts type of thing, or was it just, or was it something else?
I had the racing thoughts. I had insomnia.
Yeah.
I might be able to fall asleep for 20 minutes and then be wide awake. And nothing I could do would get me back to sleep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was on plenty of meds to get me to sleep. And that was fine. I slept, but then I woke up. I was still drugged.
Right. Yeah. And that doesn't feel good. Yeah.
No.
And it doesn't feel healthy. And it doesn't, if you're, lagging the next day because you feel, doped up and everything, you don't have much energy, which is going to affect your mood. It's going to affect your enthusiasm for things, and it's going to affect your motivation to do things. And so all of that plays right into, either not working out or not eating the right things just because you go for what's convenient or what's easy because you just don't have the energy and you're just like, screw it,
Right. And at that time, I was actually eating well and working out.
Yeah.
I imagine if I wasn't, that no medication would have helped me. And it affected my personal life.
Sure.
My partner, my spouse, and the kids. And employment. It affected everything, every aspect of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Sleep is one of my things that I as one of my effects that I carry with me is I can get to sleep. It's just I tend to have very upsetting dreams that are rooted in events in the past and people that were involved. And so the next day, even if I was, sleeping for 7 hours or whatever, you're so worked up and so tense all night long. I just feel like I've been being chased by a bear, like all night long. So I wake up and I'm like exhausted.
Yes.
I'm just like, and now I got to start the day.
Right.
And and so now that it's going to affect work, it's going to affect how I am around other people and things like that. So, that's my sleep part of the whole thing.
I pray for you that this will pass because it did for me, and I had all of that. I mean, yeah, I would wake up crying. I would be
yes, absolutely.
Wake up being verbal.
Yeah, no, I've talked in my sleep. I've certainly have woken up crying before many times. But like, there's times where like I'm like yelling at someone in my dream.
Yes.
And then like I wake up because I'm speaking out loud and I can hear myself yelling, and it's like, that's how much like the volcano is erupting in you or in me overnight.
Yes.
It's like it builds up, and then bang,
Right.
So, and that's, again, this is all stuff from, years and years and years and years ago as a little kid and times in between, stuff like that you don't think about when they happen so much. And you're not, it's like, yeah, might have been upsetting. It might not have. You might have not realized the implications of it at the time. But then as you get older and you look back, then you start realizing, like, you know what? That wasn't right. That wasn't the way it should be, or that shouldn't have happened.
Right.
And then that realization then becomes trauma, because then you're just like, because you just feel like you were totally screwed in some way, you know, and you had, again, no control over it.
I never understood why I would get so close to my friends' family and their parents.
Yeah. And again, you're nailing another thing for me right there. Yeah.
Right.
Never understood, but that's where the nurturing came from.
Yeah. I had one of my earlier girlfriends had just like, when I was just starting to date and stuff like that in high school and stuff. And I got to know her family and everything. And they were I just didn't see, I never saw like a real like normal functioning family before. And so like, that I got real drawn to and attached to because, and so like I not only was obviously, attached to her, but now her family kind of became part of the package because it was just like, I loved that feeling that was so foreign to me,
You felt secure for the first time.
Right. And it was new. It was just like, I never, didn't know much about, I didn't know that existed.
Right, exactly. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
When you say you hit the nail on the head, boy,
Yeah.
wow. The abuse has led to many suicide attempts. I can't look at you when I talk about this.
I'm looking down.
I'm not good at it, so I stopped trying. That's again, humor helps in lots of situations, and that's not really the truth. The truth is that I found Jesus, and I had ECT, which is basically shock treatment. I've had therapy. I've had great outside relationships. All of that has helped me. But yeah, I started smoking when I was 11 years old because at that time I was told smoking kills. I didn't realize how long it took.
Yeah.
Then there was drinking wart medicine to just trying to, I had epilepsy as a child, so I OD'd on my phenobarbital. Later on in life, I tried other methods. I've tried a razor. That didn't work out. My last attempt, I'm happy to say, is almost 10 years. So a long time.
Yeah.
And that was, again, prescription medication that I OD'd on. And that was the last attempt. I don't believe that I'm ever going to try it again. There's no reason. I have healed. I have learned. And I can now accept the love that has been given to me in many, many forms. Before I couldn't.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I don't want to leave.
There's a reason you were unsuccessful in all of those. You're supposed to be here still.
Yep.
You're supposed to be here still. So quit arguing with God and just stick around and enjoy the ride.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Lucy, you've done a lot of self-growth. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the modalities you've done to get through this and come to terms with your past?
Therapy has helped. Therapy has saved me. Through all of this, I've gotten a much closer and stronger connection to God.
I love that. And
God, Jesus, Holy Spirit saved my life multiple times. I am grateful, and I am grateful for the people in my life who are of the same mindset. It's great for the reinforcements. And I've started doing a new thing. When something triggers me, bothers me, I'm going in a direction I don't want to go, I say, okay, I'm going to take a walk with Jesus.
Oh, I love that.
And what I do is I picture him, and he's always in a white robe with his long hair and beard, and he's always on a shoreline. And we just stroll the shoreline, and I just absorb his peace. Oh. And I come back from that, and I can carry on.
It's great. Sounds like a really good reset.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's a recent one for me.
Yeah.
I don't know what started it, but one day I'm like, I'm going to take a walk with Jesus.
Well, sometimes it just, he reveals himself to you,
And,
Absolutely.
And do you do that just by closing your eyes? And
I don't even have to close my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my abuse, I don't like to close my eyes because I don't feel safe.
Right.
I need to be aware there's that heightened sensitivity to people around you. I used to joke and think that sitting in a restaurant with my back up against a wall facing the door was an Italian thing.
And it is.
It is.
It can be. I'm a testament to that one.
Yeah.
I remember training you, and we had to shift some of the workouts from, we had the, I forget what they're called now, but the yellow
Yeah, I couldn't be
stand
above
that
me.
she does the pull-ups on.
Yeah.
We couldn't be under that. We had to basically
Modify
modify it
Yeah.
completely for you. So
And it was interesting because I had no idea that was a trigger.
I've had people who being in planks don't like it because they feel real confined in that space. They're like, their face is like right up near the floor, like if they're on their elbows doing a low plank, they get like claustrophobic almost.
And that was the feeling.
Yeah.
It felt like pressure on my chest. I was not safe. I had to run.
do you remember the year that you accepted Jesus in your heart? Because that's when I noticed the shift in you.
It's really been a journey since 2012, I'd say. The last 5 years have been amazing.
I've seen the shift in you for sure.
Yeah.
Lucy has this very calm, as you can tell, this very calm peace. When you go around her, you're an amazing, amazing woman and one of my best friends, and I love you to death. And
I love you too, and I know this is tough for you.
it's tough for me. Yeah, it is. I'm kind of quiet and a little affected by it, but
That's okay. We'll hug when it's over.
yeah. So now
Understand that person who this happened to is no longer who I
I
am.
love that. In therapy, did they do any inner child work with you?
Oh, they tried.
You were very receptive.
Not in the
Is
least.
that tough for you?
It's very tough. To stand there and try and tell my little child within that she's forgiven, that it wasn't her fault, all of that. I can't bring up the image, and I'm sure that this works for many people, and for them, thank God that they have that.
For me, it's reliving the experience when you do that. You know what I mean? I've had people who would be like, oh, you should write a book about, this part of your life or that part of your life or whatever. And I'm just like, it sounds like it would be cathartic, and maybe for some people it would be. But for me, I'm just going to relive the whole thing in great detail,
Right.
By doing that.
Right.
And I have already suffered from it. So there's no reason to put that on myself willingly again. So, again, like you said, maybe for some people that is a good method to go, but I totally understand. For me, you're just, it's like watching the movie all over again.
Yes, and that's really, really difficult.
Oh, yeah.
And since I've been able to separate that person from me, it's made it somewhat easier.
Yeah. And that I, too, have had to do the same thing and just, not have the people who have been a part of those situations in my life anymore. And just, for better or for worse, and I believe it's for better, but it's unfortunate that those were the cards dealt,
Right.
For
Right.
both you and I, but you still got to do what's best for you, and it just means not being exposed to someone who was caused the trauma and then is always going to be a reminder of that trauma as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
So,
In a way, I'm lucky. My childhood sexual abuser is dead.
yeah.
Didn't really help, but I no longer have to see that person.
Right.
I don't have to speak about them. I don't have to be involved in their life.
Right. It doesn't necessarily give you all the closure that you might like, but at the very least, it's not in your face now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Another thing that has helped, another coping strategy, is practicing mindfulness. And that's my taking a walk with Jesus. I get centered. I get filled up. My energy level comes back up, and that helps. Also building supportive relationships.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You're no longer a person on an island by yourself, fighting to survive every minute of every day.
Just as important as it is to remove the negative people from your life, it's just as, and maybe even more important, to then fill those spots with positive people who you can rely on, who you feel safe with, who you have fun with, who that when you interact with them are not going to cause you stress, they're not going to judge you, you can just be you. And the more of those people you can fill your world with, the more comfortable you become in your own skin and in the world around you.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with that. And you have to be ready to cut the negative out.
Yeah.
And accept the positive, because there's a ton of positive out there.
Yeah. And it's tough because cutting the negative out a lot of the times means having to tell somebody, look, I'm just not, or, maybe you don't tell them, you just stop talking to them, but, but it's tough, especially depending on what your relationship to that person may be. But I have found that, making it's like breaking up, initially it's going to be tough, but over time you start getting used to it and you'll be fine. But when you notice the lack of negativity from that person in your world and you notice how much happier you are, then you feel a lot more justified in your decision. Because sometimes I second guess. I'm like, should I, give them another chance or whatever, but then I walk myself through the whole thing. I'm like, okay, so let's say I get in touch with them. What do I think is going to happen? What reason do I have to think that anything's going to be any different than it was before? And I rarely come up with anything that's going to be positive that's going to come of it. It's just going to put me right back where I was. Then I've worked so hard to get away from. So I think, doing that work, and I can tell you've done a lot of work, like if you have that second guessing moment, like, well, should I give them a chance? If you do the work and you retrace your steps, you'll say, you know what? I cut myself off for a reason. I'm a happier person for it. And I'm going to just stay the course.
Mm-hmm. And good for you for learning that.
Mm-hmm. You gotta eliminate the things in life that no longer serve you at any stage of your growth. There may be people, there may be different foods, there may be different situations that you need to just let go of. And
Pop-Tarts and donuts.
Yeah, those special donuts that you guys get on Sundays. She talks about these donuts that they get from this bakery, and they sound mouth-watering. I mean, they sound so good. But how are we doing on those?
Actually,
doing great. They're
good. We did not have
some?
No, I should have. Unfortunately, the bakery is closed on Sunday, so it would have been a day old. But I would say for the last week, maybe 2 weeks, no donuts in the house.
No donuts for you?
No donuts for you.
So Lucy and I have started working together, about a year ago with the weight loss coaching.
Has it been that long already?
I think so.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's been a little bit more. And so what we started doing was focusing on balancing your blood sugar instead of having you lose weight, right? There's a difference. When you focus on balancing your blood sugar, weight loss is a byproduct.
Right.
When you focus on losing weight, there's a lot of negative connotation that goes for that. So tell us a little bit about your experience eating for your blood type instead of, just counting the numbers on the scale.
Eating for my blood sugar has been a wonderful way to get control of my body and my mind. Honestly, that's where all the problem is up there. Eating for my blood sugar and then losing weight has gotten me off several medications and reduced the amount of medications, my insulins and stuff that I would take.
That's great.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us a little bit
yeah.
more about that.
Yeah, please.
The fast-acting insulin, which is what you take when you're about to have a meal. You check your blood sugar, and depending on where it is how much you use off it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Then I have a slow-acting insulin that is injected every day, every morning. And I had gone from 64 units down to 22 units.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And how long were you on that?
Probably 3 to 5 years.
But that's great that you worked yourself off of that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah. So fingers crossed
Fingers
it's gonna
crossed.
fingers crossed I'll get back on the right path and get back to eating for my blood sugar, because I feel so much better. My mind is clearer. My body has energy.
Yeah.
I can just keep doing things.
Your body doesn't hurt as much. You know, focusing on your blood sugar forces you to really focus on one meal at a time, right? It really does. It takes that, you know, let's say you have 60 pounds to lose. It kind of breaks that up into meal by meal. And
Well, and I agree with you that I think it's a good idea if you can find a way to focus on something like eating for your blood sugar rather than eating for weight loss. I don't think it seems like, you know, when you are eating for weight loss, you're looking at like the top of a very big mountain. You know what I mean? Right. And it's very intimidating, and it seems like it's going to be a lot of work. But if you're eating for your blood type, you're, like you said, it's just meal to meal, and realistically, that's just the only way. Even if you are going to climb that mountain, which you know you ultimately are, it's step by step. You know, and it's just so. I actually started reading books more when they came out on the Kindle because I could only see one page at a time, and I didn't have like a 400-page book in my hands where I'm sitting there thinking like, ugh. You know, it's a good book and everything, but man, there's a lot of reading.
great analogy.
But
I was going to say the same thing.
That was great.
but when I was just flipping one page at a time, the next thing I knew, I was reading 300-400-page books. You know, and it was just because I wasn't seeing the end.
Yes.
You know, so when you can just look at just one step at a time.
And prior to getting involved with Andrea and the Trippi coaching, I was always weight oriented. And if it wasn't coming off fast enough, I stopped it. And I would always look at the picture and say, okay, I have 160 pounds or, you know, 40 pounds, whatever it is to lose. And that was overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know, unattainable. And with Andrea's help, it's like, I'm just looking right now at this one thing. And before I knew it, the weight started coming off. You know, but I no longer said, okay, well, now I have to lose this much more. No, it's going to be what it's going to be.
Right. I have a client who just, he's lost about 40 pounds or so. And when we started, we didn't say we're going to lose 40 pounds. We were just going to change his diet and work out regularly and just kind of see where his body went with it and how it reacted. And, you know, we made adjustments along the way and stuff because we were trying to go for weight loss. But again, we never had like a set number or anything like that. And neither one of us really was thinking 40 pounds was going to be, I mean, and he's still going. But, you know, when we hit the 40 mark, I was telling him, if I had told you from the beginning we're going to lose 40 pounds, he was like, oh, yeah, I'd have been too intimidated by it. And it would just, you know, I would have fizzled out right away. But because we never really set that goal, you know, and then, you know, it's like, and here we are, you know. And again, we're fine-tuning things, but we're just letting his body respond to, you know, whatever weight he's healthy at. So, but yeah, looking up that mountain, it can be very intimidating.
Has your A1C dropped?
It has dropped. Before I got involved with you, I want to say it was 9.8 or something. And my last A1C was 6.6.
There you go, girl.
Very good.
You know, which was a little increase from the time before that, but that's okay. I'm watching it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get back on the program, and I'm going to hit the numbers.
You get right down to a milestone number.
Yeah.
And then I think it triggers, you know, what we had talked about. But I know that you have it in you to get down and to just keep focusing on your blood sugar and focusing on meal by meal. And you're an amazing, amazing woman. And I know you're going to accomplish all of your goals.
Thank you.
All
Thank
of
you.
your goals.
Your support means so much. It truly does, you know, and I love you completely.
Yeah.
You know, I know that if ever I needed to, I could go to your house and you could be in your sweatpants and t-shirt and not give.
Not give.
You
Yeah.
know?
Not give.
Yeah.
That's.
I concur. Yes, I know.
I've attended many parties at Lucy's house, and her family is amazing. She has a grandson that is just brings so much peace and joy. I know into my life, and I don't see him as often as you get to see him.
Oh my goodness! What a gift! What a blessing!
He calls her Grandma Mormor. Isn't that cute? Grandma Mormor.
More.
I love that. So Lucy has, without saying it, she's gone through some of the coping strategies that she has used to combat her feelings and things that have happened in the past, and to strive. The first one was seek therapy, which we talked about. We also talked about practicing mindfulness, and then the building of the supporting relationships. Do you want to talk about the last two pieces to this puzzle that have helped you overcome?
Sure. You know, engaging in self-care is huge. One thing that I've learned is I have to give myself grace. Mm-hmm. And it's something I have to remind myself of. And that is a huge part of self-care. You know, it's not necessarily getting the massages and the pedicures and manicures, but it's taking care of yourself in, not that those ways don't help, but grace. You know, okay, so I didn't eat well today. That's okay. You know, I feel guilty. It's okay, let it go. It's not serving you. You know, taking time to meditate, to pray, to just take a look at your life and all the positive things in it. You know, to me, that describes self-care. You know, and then the last one that I have is explore creative expressions. That's really not so much for me. I'm not very creative. I love to cut the grass. I love to do different things like that. And to me, that's my self-expression.
Yeah. I think you get a lot of it through your grandson, too.
Oh, absolutely.
He's your little self-expression.
Oh, my goodness. You know, I've never had a better hug than I get from him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because as soon as she says that, your smile like doubles in size. When she says grandson, your smile just really lights up. I can tell. Like it looks like there's no more room for any more smile on your face.
No,
there.
no, and my heart is just full.
You can
he
tell.
has brought so much joy to my spouse and myself, and to watch his parents. Mm-hmm. You know, seeing them as teenagers dating.
Yeah.
And now see them as...
And now to see them married and they have a son, and it's like, this is fabulous.
Yeah.
Lucy, you're an amazing person. I want to thank you.
Lucy.
Lucy. Lucy, you're an amazing person, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today and being so candid about your past. You shed a lot of light on this conversation, and a lot of the stuff I just didn't know about, and I'm sorry that you had to go through it, but I know that it makes you who you are today, and it brought you to the place that you are with the Lord and sitting in this chair to help others. So
being alive.
Yeah. Is there any advice that you would give listeners out there that have experienced a similar trauma or struggling with their weights, or just, you know, any words of encouragement?
I circle back to give yourself grace. Mm-hmm. Forgive yourself. Understand the struggles that you're going through, that you've been through, whether it's abuse, whether it's weight, whatever it is. You know, give yourself grace. And if you're struggling, get help.
Get help.
Yeah, I can't say enough about therapy. I've been in therapy more than I've not been in therapy.
Right.
But I swear by it, and I think I don't care how great your life might feel. If you feel like everything's wonderful, you can still benefit from therapy. You don't have to have trauma. You don't have to be depressed.
Absolutely.
You don't have to have anxiety. If things are good, great. Keep them good by going to therapy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
my spouse and I have done couples counseling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this you can imagine, the suicide attempts, the
Sure.
depression, the anxiety, the not sleeping, put a huge stressor on us.
Oh, I can't
You know,
imagine.
we almost didn't make it.
Of course, yeah.
So we started with couples counseling, and that saved us. And now we have tune-ups.
Yeah.
Once a month, once every 3 months.
Just kind of air some stuff out, work it out,
And remember that you have to communicate.
Right. I have a really close friend who, when he got married, they got married, and I think within like the first month they just started doing couples counseling. Obviously, there wasn't any problems. They hadn't been married long enough to have them, but they started right when they got married. They've been married, I think, about 5 years or so like that now, and they still go, and it just acts as a tool for them to just, neutral territory, kind of work some things out, make sure you're on the same page, understand why each of you do the things that you do so that you can, it's being preemptive about it has its benefits.
Absolutely. The tools are there.
You
Grab
don't have
them.
to wait until there's a problem,
Absolutely. I agree.
It can help prevent the problem. So
I think when you realize that healing is not going to happen overnight, it is a journey. And
You think?
Yeah. It's go seek that support, whatever
Absolutely.
it is. Or if it's a trusted network that you have, with your family or friends, talk.
Yes.
The more you talk, the better.
If you find yourself pulling away from everybody, that's a good sign that you need some help. Mm-hmm. It's a good reminder to reach out to your friends. Reach out to the ones that love you.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you.
I love you. Well, everybody, if you enjoyed this episode or found it helpful or know of somebody that would find this helpful, please subscribe to the Trippi Coaching Podcast. Share it with that person. Leave a review if you can. Write some kind words to Lucy. We'd love to hear them. And your support means the world to us, really.
Yeah, thank you very much again for coming on.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. It's been good connecting with you and getting to hear your story. So
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, as always, I, of course, have been who else but Tommy else.
And I am Andrea Trippi. And until the next time, here's to a healthier, more confident you.
The Trippi Coaching Podcast is produced and mixed by me. Who else but Tommy else? Theme song provided by Professor Click. Be sure to check him out at professorclick.com. All one word, KLIQ.com. The content provided in the Trippi Coaching Podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional, medical, health, wellness advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Be sure to like, rate, and review the show, and you may hear your review read on a future episode. And follow the Trippi Coaching Podcast on Facebook for exclusive content.